Matillion ETL version 1.71 is now publicly available to all customers. In this video, we'll show you what new features and improvements are included. For Matillion ETL on Snowflake, new components have been added to save results from a range of commands to grid variables. First, the describe to grid component has been added. This component lets you save the results of a describe command into a grid variable. For example, we can use describe to grid to use information about columns in a given table, or it could be used to retrieve information about a specific role and use this data in a grid variable. You'll need to have a grid variable created on your Matillion ETL instance to load the data into. Also, the show to grid component has been added. This component lets you save results of a show command into a grid variable. For example, you could use this new component to list all schemas in a given database and add them to a grid variable. Or it could be used to retrieve all privileges granted to a specific role to use in a grid variable. Next is an update to the SQL script component. You can now export query ID data from the SQL script component as a job variable. This addition allows for improved logging and auditing, or easy access to the results of previous queries. This can be configured by selecting the Export tab of an SQL script component and clicking Edit. Then Query ID is available as a source variable to export. Also new in version 1.71, support for Snowflake's dynamic data masking policy has been added to Matillion ETL for Snowflake enterprise customers. This provides data engineers the power to mask sensitive data as per policy, and give customers the confidence that sensitive data is not being exposed. The dynamic data masking policy functionality has been added to the create table component. When adding or editing columns, you can set a masking policy. Data in a masked column will be displayed as masked. In addition, if you need to change a masking policy on an existing object, the alter masking policy component has been added. This lets you apply a Snowflake dynamic data masking policy to a column in a materialized view, table, or view, or alter a column to use a different masking policy. For Matillion ETL on Snowflake, Amazon Redshift, and BigQuery, the SAP ODP Extract component is now available. This component enables Matillion ETL users to connect directly through SAP ODP to access available data sources in SAPI and ABAP CDS view. There are new components available for Matillion ETL on Delta Lake on Databricks. The Start Cluster component has been added. This component lets you poll a Databricks cluster to confirm the cluster is running, or continues polling the cluster at specific intervals in seconds until the cluster is running. If the cluster fails to start, the component will fail. Use this component to confirm your Databricks cluster is running before executing any further components, for example, in a scheduled job. Also, the Delta Live Streaming component has been added. This component lets you run a continuous Delta Live Tables pipeline within Matillion ETL asynchronously. For Matillion ETL on Data Lake on Databricks, Amazon Redshift, and Google BigQuery, the Anaplan Bulk component has been added. This component uses the Anaplan API to retrieve bulk data and load it into a table via an Anaplan export or custom view. These are the new features in Matillion ETL version 1.71. Please subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with the latest releases, and for more information on everything covered in this video, please visit the Matillion documentation site.